Not too long ago, I was surfing Tumblr and I came across this really cool graphic by the artist Sophia Wallace, and it said CLITERACY. And I was like, alright, what is this? So I'm looking at the graphic, I started sharing the graphic, seeing if women that I knew what it was, and they didn't, but they were very excited and they thought it was very cool. So Scope NYC art show comes to town, and guess who's one of the featured artists? Sophia Wallace. And what is her installation? CLITERACY. So I set out that day when I went, I'm going to get a word from Sophia. So I spoke to her people and just asked if she would give me a word, give me a conversation, just explain it to me on camera so I could share it with you guys. And sure enough, she was very cool, and she had a conversation with me about CLITERACY. So here it is.
My name is Sophia Wallace, and my work is CLITERACY, 100 Natural Laws. I was inspired to create this project because I was really exhausted with seeing all of these representations of sex, all these sexualized images of female bodies, and the clitoris being completely absent from everything. And I said, how is this possible? In 2013, the clitoris is not acknowledged in any kind of representation of sex. And I actually resisted doing the project for a while, but it kept on coming up. I kept on having conversations about it, and after like the fourth really passionate 3-hour conversation I had at various dinners and out to drinks, I was like, actually I need to just go to my studio and make the work and stop talking about it, and that's what I did. I've gotten really incredible responses. I've gotten so many personal letters. It went viral when I released it on Tumblr. Within like a week I had 20,000 views, so that was pretty incredible. Some of the negative responses are based on misunderstandings of the work. So some of the critique has been that by talking about the clitoris and saying that like the vaginal orgasm is a myth, that I'm saying that you can't have an orgasm through penetration, which is exactly not what I'm saying. I'm saying that there's the clitoris, which is like this very large organ. It's both internal and external, and all of the pleasure that comes is from the clitoris, and that's what should get credit for female pleasure. Once I identified that I wanted to work on this project, I basically just dug really heavily into the research. So a lot of scientific research, psychoanalysis, philosophical research, religious research, that was like a huge part of the project. I mean, it really started from a research place. And then I started thinking about how am I going to represent this work, because I didn't want to use female bodies. Like, female bodies are already exploited visually for everything. And there's this false understanding that like you can see something on the female body and then you know it. You can like see that object and have that object and you grasp it, and nothing could be really further from the truth. And beyond that, not everything that's salient or valid is something that is visible. And the clitoris is certainly that way. I mean, it's like an iceberg. What is thought of as a clitoris is just the tip of the iceberg. It's just a fraction of what the organ is, which is actually similar in size to the penis. But no one knows that. No one talks about that. Even if you go to your doctor's office, the clitoris isn't identified on any of the charts. I mean, can you imagine that as a man, if the whole society was like obsessed with your testicles and no one talked about your penis? No one would touch your penis. No one would acknowledge it. I mean, it's hard to even imagine when you try to flip the script, but that's pretty much the contemporary reality for women. I mean, I was learning every day with working with this project, and there's so much to learn. And the other thing I would say is this work isn't trying to answer everything, because how could that possibly be? There have been so few studies on female bodies. In terms of the studies on the clitoris, there's only been a few of these recently that have come up with these major findings, such as like the true scale and complexity of the clitoris, which came out in 1998, ultrasounds of the aroused clitoris, which was 2009, or I'm sorry, MRIs of the aroused clitoris. These were done with almost no funding. I would argue strongly against the idea that we could say with 2 studies we know everything there is to know about the clitoris or female bodies. Absolutely not. We're just starting to find out, and this is my first kind of attack at the sort of the subject and the problem, and I invite everyone to sort of contribute and engage and intervene in ways that they feel like I've left things out. And the last law is intentionally there are more laws, and that's basically saying we're just starting the conversation. I mean, think about like how much fetishization there has been of the penis, and the female body has been, particularly female genitals, right, have been sort of this source of shame. The highest kind of state you can be as a woman is like the Virgin Mother, right? Virgin Mary. I mean, she is like at the top, right? So you're already set up to fail because that's completely impossible. We have language like cunt, pussy, twat, or we have all this language like motherfucker, which is about what? Being receptive, getting fucked. So it's obviously time for someone to address the clitoris. It's obviously time that we have a real conversation about everybody's bodies, and that this whole idea of like shame towards the female body is like cut out, like enough. The logic doesn't make any sense. Like, we don't have to go along with it.
So in your studies, did you kind of come close to the answer of why it's been such a subject that hasn't been covered? Did you discover a lot of ignorance or fear?
Sure.
Or just...
Yeah. I mean, so scientists have only studied male bodies for the most part. One of the reasons for this is in Western medicine, there were many of the bodies that were available for scientists to discover were prisoners. There were more male prisoners. So that's like one of the reasons. On the other side, when scientists did study female bodies, they were looking for the opposite of the male body. They were only looking for like what is the inverse of masculinity, and they were looking at reproduction. Anything unique about the female body was completely not in their frame of reference. They were not interested. And actually, there are some. One of the really exciting things that I found out about was the female spotted hyena, which actually has a clitoris that extends out of her body. It's quite long, it gets erections, and they are actually dominant over the males, which is interesting. The male spotted hyenas will lick the clitorises of the females. The females will lick the clitorises of the higher ranking females, but the female spotted hyena will never ever lick the penis of the male because they're lower ranking. And I mean, I think it's just like funny and shocking, and it just shows you even that idea that would sort of be hubris is tells you a lot about the current state of like gender relations. But scientists, they call this organ the pseudo penis, right? It's female, it's pseudo, it's not real. It's like this idea, even the word like woman, female, you're sub, you're not like a full person, you're like the sub part, yes. You're the offset. So I think, part of what the work is doing is pointing out the lack of neutrality in science, in religion, in philosophy, in psychoanalysis, these whole frames of like the penis and the lac, the phallus and the lac, the object, the non-object. Even if you think about like hardware, like electrical plugs, right? There's like the male side and the female side. It's based on this idea that the males have something, the females have nothing. You just have this hole that's waiting to be something to happen to it, right? Which is a false frame. So also the word cliteracy is a really important word, and it deals with obviously reading and writing, but it also deals with knowledge and how subjugated people have not been allowed to learn how to read and write. It was illegal for slaves to learn how to read and write. Okay, that was against the law, and scientists work together with religious leaders and politicians to say these people are subhuman. They're not actually on the same level as us. Therefore, it's okay for you to deprive them of their rights. And I think it's the same thing with their subjugated bodies when knowledge workers come together and define them as less than and create a whole power structure that acknowledges some people's bodies and puts other people's bodies as less than, as like a different kind of category of person, of human. And this work is really about core truths and bringing back everything to sort of an equal playing field of human, of person, of citizen, right? So, on the face it might seem like it's about sex. It's really about citizenship. It's really about participation in society. And how do you do that when you're like a less than subject?
Amazing. You totally got me engaged. Like, thank you.
For more information on Sophia Wallace and CLITERACY, visit sophiawallace.com. And just like always, the link is in the description. Until then, I see you guys next time.